Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely shatter a massive, universally held assumption about exactly why people abandon their jobs. Let's get right into it. Okay, so the narrative we've all heard is almost always the exact same, right? People work too hard, they burn out, and then they quit. Boom, done. Standard HR metrics are built entirely around this foundational belief. Literally, when turnover spikes, leadership's very first instinct is to look at the hours worked, assume people are simply exhausted, and treat overwork as this universal red light. They treat it as a signal that supposedly means the exact same thing to absolutely everyone. But hard data completely disrupts this idea. It really does. When researchers mapped reasons for giving up against spiral dynamics theory, the framework that categorizes human value systems into color-coded stages, they found something wild. A mathematically significant Pearson correlation of negative 0.0433 between overwork and what's known as the Turquoise value system. And just to put that into perspective, we are not talking about some minor statistical anomaly here. This negative correlation comes from a massive dataset. We're talking 81 countries, 20 languages, and over 1,500 respondents. What this definitively proves is that individuals operating from a turquoise profile simply do not view overwork as a primary reason to quit. It just doesn't register for them the way our standard retention models think it absolutely should. So, you're probably wondering, what exactly is turquoise? Well, in spiral dynamics theory, the turquoise vMEME represents a deeply holistic global worldview. For a turquoise mindset, the isolated individual feeling of working too hard completely loses its meaning. Seriously, they don't look at their own fatigue in a vacuum. Instead, they map exhaustion to a broken system design. If the entire ecosystem is coherent and actually serves a synthesized global purpose, then heavy individual effort isn't overwork. It's literally just the necessary energy for the whole system to flow. Now, this creates a huge systemic gap. Standard burnout tracking basically just treats the symptoms, while the turquoise view is looking for structural flow. And here's where it gets messy. When organizations try to fix things by simply cutting hours and yanking the overwork metric off their dashboards, unexpected things happen all across the company, because other value systems react totally differently. Blue systems tighten their procedural standards. Orange systems just archive the emotional fatigue data like it's non-performance noise. And green systems, they perceive a total loss of psychological safety and relational support. See, because different value systems interpret the exact same management move in wildly different ways, coordination completely fractures. It's like a terrible game of telephone. You send one single signal, reducing hours, and the blue system sees a loss of moral diligence and rules. The orange system sees a shift toward pure meritocracy, where burnout is totally irrelevant. And the green system feels their core empathy trigger has just been completely abandoned. So you have one signal, but three completely fractured meanings. And this triggers a really devastating domino cascade. It starts with signal misalignment, which leads directly to talent misfires. You're basically trying to retain people using entirely the wrong incentives. This causes deep cultural fragmentation and ultimately a complete crash in system distrust and leadership legitimacy. You've essentially broken the shared language of the company without even realizing you did it. It's just like the research highlights. Most retention frameworks don't test this. They assume. Leaders misread this silent attrition as simple disengagement. So what do? They throw resilience training or, yoga Fridays at the problem, completely missing the structural blindness built right into their own tracking systems. They falsely assume everyone defines burnout the exact same way. And when prediction happens without actually modeling the whole system, sustainability logic just completely fractures. So how do we actually solve this? We have to move from guessing to predicting. And the way we're doing this is rapidly evolving through a massive 2026 trend known as AI vibe coding. This is where users literally instruct LLMs using pure natural language to build complex apps without writing traditional code. For example, the SD Navigator dynamic programming interface was created entirely via vibe coding with Claude. It takes your company's current cultural state and mathematically models out the future ripple effects of any management action across 13,000 global correlations. Using system-aware AI prompts, this model formally evaluates the very soul of a company. It analyzes 5 distinct layers of psychological sensors and forecasts exactly how your team will react 1 to 6 months out. And here's the truly incredible part. It treats human fear, trust, and well-being as heavy mathematical variables. So a fear spec isn't just brushed off as an external HR complaint. It's a weighted metric that perfectly balances your direct financial actions against actual human reality. This reveals an absolutely massive paradigm shift. Old world management cuts costs via simple spreadsheets, right? Like firing someone to save $50,000, totally oblivious to the $200,000 lost when system trust plummets. But new world management, it maximizes systemic stability. We stop treating employees like universal cogs in a machine, and instead we engineer highly targeted solutions for the unique psychological wiring of every single team member, whether they are blue, orange, green, or turquoise. And what's really wild is that these AI predictions produce some incredibly counterintuitive recommendations. Sometimes, the math actually proves that if a system is completely exhausted and overheating, the absolute highest value move you can make is to do nothing. Seriously, absolutely nothing. Stop the new initiatives, pause the mandatory wellness programs, just let the system rest. When you map the psychology properly, doing nothing suddenly becomes a mathematically validated strategy. Look, if your retention strategy is still relying on outdated, universal assumptions about burnout, you are essentially flying blind. Prediction without real system modeling is honestly just guessing. So you have to ask yourself, what breaks when exhaustion signals stop being universal in retention frameworks?